our fetishism for the machine. And I had just finished my previous feature, and I just kind of had a little light bulb moment, and I thought, I could make something interesting. And 3.5 years later, here we are.
Do we have any questions from the audience? Anybody? All right, well, so talk about the genesis of how the project came about and how you were able to get such, great talent like the Beasties and Goldie and Pharrell and all those people to be involved with this film.
Well, they called us, obviously. I mean, no, we again, Arthur has an amazing gravitas around the story. And when you call somebody to say, hey, we're doing something around the 808, people would go, well, that's relevant. Aside of that, a lot of those guys are just passionate about the sound. So they turned up and, found time in their busy schedule. Busy man. And we had to be in the right place at the right time. And being first in Miami in 2012 during Winter Music. We had to, then we were in LA, in New York, and we were in Miami again. We went to even my home country of Finland, and Japan, and Brussels, and so on. And we just had to obviously make the effort. But the fact is, when we reached out, they, their ears perked up, and they said, as Fatboy Slim said at the end of his interview, it's like it was nice to answer a question about something they're passionate about.
Any questions? Don't be shy. Come on. Someone's got to have a question. All right. Well, then I'll just continue to ask questions. Hey.
What is the 808, right?
No, yeah. Well, I think they know by now, hopefully. But so Hank, maybe could you tell me though, when was the first time you ever saw or heard of the 808 and what the story behind it was and what's going on with that?
Well, I think the first time I saw one was a friend of mine had one downstairs. We had a rehearsal studio that was downstairs from my studio upstairs, and he brought one in. And the first thing I did was I looked at it and I was like, okay, this thing looks cool, but I didn't like the sounds because it was too thin and everything else. But what he did was he showed me how to tune the 808 to get a little sustain out of it. And then from that point on, I was just like, you know what? We have to get one of these.
And do you still have one?
Unfortunately, no. Well, I retrofitted it to become MIDI. And then after that, it kind of just died. So I never get
Yeah, no, I want to know about it.
Actually, you might have noticed an 808 with a few signature on it.
Yeah.
It's our mascot, my 808. And I didn't retrofit, and I really sympathize with that story because it's a fact. If you MIDI fit your 808, you lose the depth and the range of it. So mine is just very pure, and we just gotta play around with it. And we have, you got to see Strafe playing on it. You got little glimpses of Jam and Lewis playing on it. We actually, in the trailer, you might have seen, we redid Planet Rock on the machine. It's amazing that after 35 years, a machine like that can still hold its own, even without upgrade. And actually, that machine is now on a bit of a reputation within Roland, and they want us to bring it to Japan for them to inspect it and clean it up and service it and so on. And yeah, I think I might take them up on that.
So was that really Marvin Gaye's role? Was it really?
Well, not mine. Mine is not Marvin Gaye, but the guy's Soul Wax. The fact is, it's leaning towards it. It was, the shop, in Ghent, Gent is not very far. It was bought from a studio. All the indications seems like it could very well be. Now they'll never know, and the fact that the pattern of sexual healing was on it when they turned it on. To be fair, it could have been on a lot of machine, but you know what? For the magic and the legend of the man, the music, and the sound, I'll say it probably is. And that's actually for the little story. They lent it to us to take it back to Belgium. So Mike Butcher, when he's playing with it, it's actually, that's not my 808, that's the one from these guys, which supposedly is the one from Marvin Gaye. So, you know, it was important to us because that story is such an amazing story as far as giving Marvin Gaye a long overdue Grammy. Arguably was his coldest song, and the fact that there's this whole mystery about the machine, the way that it cut his ties with Motown through using this machine, I think this, you know, I think this is one of the most beautiful legends of the 808.
Also, if I had happened, only 12,000 was made, and you can see everybody knows about it. So if everybody knows about it, that means that this thing has to get passed around to a lot of different people. So I would go with it. You know.
I had a quick question. When I listen to Chuck talk about how, you know, the tracks were made and everything, he always talks about how they take the 2-inch tape, you have to take the 2-inch tapes, spreading it across the room around pencils and stuff like that. Were you recording, were you using the 808 to record that 2-inch tape?
No, because that was for sampling.
Okay.
You know, because and it was actually microphone stands that went around, and because we couldn't get, you know, at the time there was the only thing that you can get your hands on was like a sampler that gave you 3 seconds.
Okay.
So we wanted to get something that gave me like 29 seconds. So you have to run a tape.
Where did you get those little patterns between some of the segments where they had like they showed like a chart for Planet Rock and then like the instructions to go to 32 bars and where did those come from?
There's a mixture of those. A lot of those actually. This young British graphic designer who ended up doing our posters did this this poster series called Program Your 808, and we reached out to him. His name is Rob Ricketts, and we reached out to him, and he drew those by ear. If that makes any sense, is that he was listening to the patterns, and from it creating visual posters that recreated the sonic map of how each sequence was programmed. Now, I mean, I'll be honest, they were not all perfect, but they were very, very close. But at the same time, we also had access to great notes. Guys like Strafe and Mike Butchers had you know, full notes as to exactly how the sequences were made. Now, bearing in mind that 2 808s are never alike, and even if you keep your 808 playing, it will kind of go off whatever sequence you have. You can imagine that a little bit, as you saw with Mike Butcher on Sexual Healing, is that you will not have it twice sounding exactly the same. And so, you know, it's actually interesting that it can be visually represented and notes can be kept and celebrated. And that guy, Rob Ricketts, I really recommend look up his work because it's amazing. But it still will not be exactly it's only how can I put it? It's only an echo of its own story.
You know, I think that's about all the time we have because we got to get another movie in here. But thank you guys for coming out, and thanks to Alex and hanging. Yeah. Oh yeah. No, I was gonna do the plug. I'm gonna do the plug. So right now at First Ward, you got to come out and see Hank. Do you have anything that? No, tell us what you're gonna do.
Well, I'm not gonna do anything. Just play. You know, I'm just gonna play some beats, and you guys are all welcome. I believe for you guys. It should be okay for all of y'all to come in. So I'm inviting every one of you guys as my guests to come through and hang out. All right.
Thanks everybody for coming out.